Hey, it's Joel, 3D printing nerd at the Matterhackers booth here at Bay Area Maker Faire, and I am joined by
Angus of Muse.
One of the things that's really awesome about this trip for Angus is that he just crossed 100,000 YouTube subscribers. Congrats, man.
Thanks, man. It was ridiculous that it happened at the exact time that it did at the Matterhackers meet the other night.
That was crazy. We got a bunch of people who filmed it, and I really want to ask you, because I passed 100K, you passed 100K. I know how it felt to me. How does it feel to have that milestone reached?
I'll be completely honest, I'm still comprehending it. Like, anything beyond 10 or 15K is still hard for me to comprehend. 100,000 is like, you lose count of how many people it actually is and how many people you're actually impacting. And I'll probably be on the plane, I'll probably just start crying. That's just usually how it happens. After everything, after the adrenaline, I'll probably just be like, oh God.
Well, now that you have even more subscribers and you're in 6 digits, you know you got a lot more work to do, right?
Oh yeah, it's already a full-time job, and now I'm going to have to start employing more than, Lady Muse, who does an amazing job, by the way. Just a shout out to Lady Muse, who keeps me alive.
What are your plans for your channel now that it's reached this level of growth? Because obviously this isn't where you're going to stop, and you want to keep growing. This is your full-time job, and like you said, Lady Muse is helping you out. What do you see in the near future as far as ways to take advantage of this new growth and this new audience you have?
Sure. So I guess Maker's Muse was never intended to be just about 3D printing. I set it out to be, originally it was going to be a blog about people who kind of wanted to show off their projects. It's a Maker's Muse. It was going to be an aggregate, right? But I was like, okay, I'm just going to do the work and start it. And the video thing kind of snowballed from there. But it's never going to be about 3D printing only. So I'm looking at laser cutting. I mean, I used to work as a laser cutting technician for a year. So I know them quite well. I just don't have the room for one. So I'm now looking at one like the Emblazer, which is made in Australia. So I'm starting to move beyond just 3D printing, but it's always going to have an education focus. How can you use these technologies to empower your creativity? That's the drive that keeps me going.
That's great, and I'm fully on board with that, because the next generation obviously is the ones that's going to carry the torch and make this go. Do you feel that you are at a disadvantage, or do you have any troubles because you are based in Australia, whereas a lot of us who also do it aren't in Australia? We're in the US or Europe, and do you find it harder to make content or get product to aid in the content?
Yes and no. There is advantages and there's disadvantages. Obviously, coming to the States from Australia, 14-hour flight is the quickest you can do, and it's $1,500 return. So that's like, oh, just come in next weekend. No, I can't. So events are really hard to get to. But on the flip side, being in Australia, it's a beautiful country. And we have had to pull some strings, but now we do have fiber. So the internet we're in the top 1% of Australia now. And we live in this little town no one knows about, down the coast from Sydney. But where we live now is amazing, because we're doing these. I'm probably the only person in Australia who gets these machines. I probably get them before anyone else in the continent, right? But also we're quite close to China. So China's the manufacturing hub of the world. So I can fly to China in 9 hours. And that's kind of what's starting to happen. So that's my advantage over you guys. Yeah.
That's kind of cool. And that's really interesting that China is such a hub of manufacturing for the globe. You are a less than a day's flight away from being able to go to Shenzhen and actually experience it all.
It's almost the same time zone, actually. There's only a few hours difference depending on where you go.
I didn't know that.
There's no jet lag.
What's something that you've done in the past that you feel has gained the biggest audience response? What is your fan base thought of as, wow, this is really cool, thank you for doing this? What has given you the most positive response?
Right, so I reckon that would have to be the torture cube. Like, or maybe these things, the Maker coins. I don't know. I tend to make projects that people embrace, kind of by accident. The Maker coin was purely accident. I was testing swatches of filaments, as you do, and I wanted something small that I could test each filament on. So I CAD'd this in 10 minutes in Onshape. And then everyone started doing their own versions.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, you started it too. Yeah, and that was the first one. But then the torture cube was really where it was interesting, because that was almost like a challenge. I was like, this is what I can do, but what can you do on your machines? And it exploded. And interesting, because I was charging for the file, people started designing their own versions, which I'm like, that's super cool. Like, someone designed their own customizable Thingiverse version of a torture cube. customize how many you want rotating, how many lattice sections. I'm like, that's just awesome. Like, hands down, the coolest thing I've ever seen. And that was because I kind of just threw the idea out there. I didn't invent the cube, but I just put the idea out there.
That's great. And yeah, the Maker Coin movement was crazy. That was like everything that anybody was printing at one time. There's like the print of the month, and that was definitely the print of the month.
It was kind of like a smaller 3D printing hub only of what fidget spinners are.
So speaking of fidget spinners, you yourself, I think I threw down a challenge, and you counted up something pretty awesome. Can you talk about the one you made?
I can indeed, and there's a little bit of story to go along with that as well. So I do combat robots as a hobby. I don't do it too much anymore, but that's what got me through high school, basically. Machines that are remote controlled that smash each other to bits. So with the fidget spinners, I'm like, okay, I'm going to make a destructive fidget spinner. I like spinning things on my desk, but I want to like break things. So you threw down the challenge. You did indeed. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try to make one that's smaller than everyone else, but packs a punch. So I pulled out some VCR bearings, which have some really nice tolerances. They spin really well, and put some teeth on it. So I was spinning it up and smashing stuff, And I brought it to the National Manufacturing Week in Melbourne last week, and I had it on the booth showing people, because it's a lovely print. I spent a lot of effort tuning it to print it on the Prusa Mark II. Put it down for 10 minutes, someone pinched it. So I don't know who, if you're watching this video, you better enjoy that fidget spinner, because I sure did.
It's a one of a kind, man.
It's a one of a kind. There's nothing like it. I didn't print two. I only had one bearing that worked well, because I used to use them in my little robots, so they're all wrecked. I was really sad.
We here in the U.S., we don't use a lot of VCRs anymore, so there's plenty that are in scrap heaps. You could probably take home a few more VCR bearings and maybe print a V2 of it. You have that chance.
I'm sure. I'm catching up with Calvin on Monday, and I'm sure he's going to take me to some crazy scrap heap somewhere. That's going to be fun.
That's going to be a fun trip. Okay, one more question, Angus. Just one more question. This is your first trip to the U.S. What has been one thing you'll always remember about your first trip?
Right, so what I found interesting is Australia's not too different, right? We have a lot of American culture. We have a lot of, Japanese culture, Chinese culture. But what I found really interesting is everything that's for sale here, there's a massive range of it, and things are larger. In general. Not everything. I was a bit disappointed that I had a McDonald's, sausage egg McMuffin. It was exactly the same size. I was like, what is this? I've been gypped. But we went to In-N-Out. That was good. They were good burgers. But yeah, like energy drinks, right? In Australia, there's half a fridge. Red Bulls, whatever. Here, there's 3 fridges, at least. And I'm like, okay, that's pretty cool. I can get behind that.
All right. Well, Angus, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. You're here all 3 days. Hopefully, everyone gets a chance to meet you, to see you. And congrats again on 100K.
Likewise, man. Congrats.
Congrats, man. Let's seal it up.
High five to the future.
High fives, maybe.